Every single day, somewhere in the world, a person walks toward a cow and assumes she sees them the way they see themselves. A farmer, a caretaker, a familiar face. But what if that assumption has been wrong the entire time? What if the creature standing in that field, with those enormous dark eyes fixed directly on you, is processing something so different from what you imagined that the word recognition barely scratches the surface? What if she doesn't see a human at all, but something far more complex, more personal, and in some ways more honest than any label you could give yourself? This is not a story about magical connections or talking animals. This is a story about science, about behavior, about the hidden interior of a mind we have spent thousands of years living beside and almost never truly understood. The cow looking at you right now is not a blank slate. She is not a machine built for milk and grass and silence. She is a living, feeling, perceiving creature with a memory longer than most people expect, an emotional range deeper than most people acknowledge, and a way of seeing the world that is so different from our own that to understand it even partially is to change the way you think about every animal you have ever encountered. So let us start there. Let us start with the moment she first looks at you. When a cow turns her head and fixes her gaze in your direction, you might assume she is simply registering your presence the way a camera registers light, passively, mechanically, without interpretation. But her visual system is doing something far more nuanced than that. A cow's eyes are positioned on the sides of her head, giving her a nearly panoramic field of view covering around 330 degrees. She can see almost everything around her at once without moving. She sees in color, though her spectrum is shifted from ours. She is particularly sensitive to blue and yellow wavelengths. Red appears more muted to her, closer to a dark olive or brown. Her world is wide but differently detailed than yours. Not worse, not better, just different, shaped by millions of years of different evolutionary pressures. And yet, despite that difference, she sees you. She recognizes you. And how she does that is one of the most remarkable things behavioral science has uncovered about the bovine mind. Research has consistently shown that cows can distinguish between individual human faces, not just silhouettes or general shapes, but actual individual faces. In studies where cows were shown photographs of familiar and unfamiliar humans, they responded differently to each one, revealing through their behavior and their stress hormone levels that they were doing something cognitively sophisticated. They were not just seeing a person. They were seeing a specific person with all the associations, memories, and emotional weight that person carried. Think about what that means. The cow in your field is not looking at a generic human being. She is looking at you, a particular you, a you with a history, a you she has been quietly, patiently building a file on over months or even years. But here is what most people miss. That file is not written in the language of human categories. She does not think of you as a farmer, a man, a woman, a stranger. Those are concepts built from language and culture, and cows have none of those things in the way humans do. What she files away about you is something older and more primal. She remembers how you made her feel. She remembers whether the moments that involved your presence were safe or frightening, calm or stressful, associated with pain or with relief. She is not judging your intentions. She cannot access your intentions. What she can access, with surprising accuracy, is your emotional state, your body language, your movement patterns, and the physical sensations she has learned to associate with your arrival. You are not a human to her. You are a pattern of experience. And that pattern, built up over time, determines everything about how she responds when she sees you walking toward her. This is not a metaphor. This is what behavioral research tells us about how cows form associations. They are extraordinarily good at associative learning. They can learn from a single experience, retaining it for months or even years. A cow who was handled roughly during a procedure at 6 months old may remain wary of similar handling at 3 years old. Not because she is holding a grudge in any conscious sense, but because her nervous system filed that experience under something that feels like danger. And her brain is doing its job by keeping that file active. The same system that remembers fear also remembers comfort. A cow who has been consistently handled with patience, who has learned through repeated experience that a certain person approaches without threat, adjusts her physiology accordingly. Her heart rate stays lower. Her cortisol levels remain more stable. She may even move toward the approaching figure rather than away. What looks like friendliness to us is, in her experience, something more like quiet confidence. The confidence of knowing what to expect. It is trust of a kind. Not the trust of a human friendship, built on shared language and conscious reciprocity. It is something older, something built in the body. And the body, for a cow, is where so much of her world lives. Cows are deeply physical creatures in a way that is easy to underestimate. Their skin is extraordinarily sensitive. They can feel a single fly landing on a single hair. Their social grooming behavior, where the cows lick each other along the neck and back, is not just about hygiene. It has measurable physiological effects. It lowers heart rate. It reduces stress hormones. It is a form of physical social bonding, to bodies helping each other return to a calmer state through touch. When a human touches a cow in a way that mimics this kind of contact, something real happens. The cow's physiology shifts. Gentle, consistent touch in the right areas communicates something to her nervous system that goes beyond simple sensation. It communicates safety. It communicates the absence of threat. In her world, a predator does not approach slowly and carefully and scratch behind the ears. A predator lunges. A predator moves fast and without warning. A person who does not trigger the flight response is already telling her something important before a single, deliberate action passes between you. This is why experienced handlers have always known, even before science confirmed it, that how you approach a cow matters as much as what you do once you arrive. The slow walk, the lowered body language, the quiet voice, the avoidance of sudden movements. These are not just courtesy behaviors. They are signals in a language the cow actually speaks. A language of physical information, spatial relationships, movement patterns, and postural cues that her nervous system has been reading since the day she was born. And she was born already reading it. The bond between a cow and her calf is one of the most studied relationships in animal behavior. And what the research reveals is consistently moving, even to scientists trained in professional detachment. Cows are not indifferent mothers. A mother cow can recognize her calf's call from among dozens of other calves. When separation occurs, what follows is not nothing. Cows separated from their calves vocalize repeatedly and persistently. They move restlessly. Their feeding behavior changes. Their sleep is disrupted. Stress hormones remain elevated for days or even weeks. Some individuals show disruptions that last longer. This is behavioral data, not sentiment, and it tells us something important about what kind of creature we are dealing with. We are dealing with a being that forms strong social bonds and carries the memory of losing them forward in time. Memory is central to understanding the cow, and it is one of the areas where human intuition most consistently sells these animals short. People tend to assume that animals without language live in a perpetual present, that each experience is processed and released, that there is no accumulation of a personal history. But this assumption does not hold up against the evidence. Cows remember specific places where they found food or water. They remember individual herd members they have not seen in months. They remember people. They remember the person who helped them through a difficult birth. They remember the person who moved too fast, spoke too loudly, or caused them pain. The nervous system does not discriminate between good and bad experiences when it comes to storage. It encodes both, and what changes is only the emotional quality attached to each memory. Researchers studying spatial memory in cattle have found that cows can learn the location of multiple food sources spread across a large area and navigate between them efficiently. They can learn complex tasks and remember the correct solution over extended time periods. They can observe other cows solving a problem and use that observation to solve it themselves. A behavior that suggests not just memory but social learning, the capacity to watch, understand, and apply. This social learning matters enormously for how cows relate to humans. Because so much of what a young cow comes to believe about people she learns from the animals around her. If she grows up in a herd where the older animals are calm around human handlers, she is more likely to develop that same calm. If she grows up watching adults react to certain people with agitation and flight, she inherits that template. What you are, in the eyes of a cow, is partly shaped by what the cows who came before her decided you were. You are inheriting a reputation that may have been built long before you arrived. Let us go deeper into how she reads you, because the channels of information she is using are more numerous than most people realize. Her sense of smell is one of the most sophisticated in the mammalian world. She has a specialized organ that allows her to detect chemical information that our own olfactory system cannot even register. She uses it to identify individual herd members, to detect emotional states in other animals, to find water from extraordinary distances, and she uses it to read you. When a cow smells you, she is not registering a generic human scent. She is reading a chemical autobiography, your hormonal state, your stress level, whether you have recently been in contact with other animals, whether something in your body chemistry has changed from the last time she encountered you. She is reading you in a dimension you cannot even perceive, because humans have largely lost the neural circuits that would make this level of olfactory detail meaningful. What this means is that you can lie to a cow with your face. You can smile and appear calm on the surface, but you cannot lie to her nose. If you are nervous, she smells it. If you are afraid, she smells it. If something in your body is producing the chemical signatures of agitation, she receives that information whether you intend to send it or not. This is one of the reasons why calm body language alone is not sufficient for building trust with cattle. You have to actually be calm, or close enough that your chemistry matches your movements. The cow is not fooled by performance. She is also reading your face, more than you might expect. Research on face discrimination in cattle has shown not just that they can tell individual humans apart, but that they use specific facial features to do so. They can also read emotional expressions. In studies where cattle were shown photographs of angry human faces versus calm ones, they responded differently. Angry faces produced more vigilance, higher arousal, a shift in gaze behavior associated with processing negative stimuli. Calm faces produced less vigilance and lower arousal. They were extracting emotional information from the configuration of features and responding to it appropriately. When you approach a cow with tension in your jaw and tightness around your eyes, she may be reading that signal as clearly as she reads your pace and your smell. Now consider the reverse. What is she broadcasting to you, and how much of it are you missing? Cows have an extensive repertoire of vocalizations. Researchers have identified dozens of distinct sounds that cattle produce, and they are not random noise. They are communicative. A cow calling to her calf produces a different vocalization than a cow calling to herd members. A cow in pain sounds different from a cow in anticipation of food. The frequency, the duration, the pattern of the call all carry information that other cattle read and respond to. Humans mostly do not. We hear a cow vocalize and we might notice whether it sounds distressed in a general sense. But we are not picking up the specific information that other cattle are processing from the same sound. We have been living beside these animals for 10,000 years and we still do not really speak their language. We understand it better than we once did because behavioral researchers have spent decades decoding it. But in the field, in the barn, in the ordinary moments of daily proximity, most of us are functionally deaf to the nuance of what a cow is saying, and she is saying quite a lot. The social world of cows adds another layer to everything. Cows are herd animals in the deepest sense, meaning their psychology was built for and around group living. Their safety is the group. Their comfort is the group. Their emotional regulation, the way they bring themselves back from fear or agitation to baseline calm, often happens through proximity to familiar individuals. The presence of a calm herd member lowers arousal in an agitated cow. The vocalization of a distressed herd member raises arousal in the rest. They are coupled systems, nervous systems in constant low-level communication with each other. Within the herd, cows have what researchers call preferred associates. Animals they choose to spend time near, to rest beside, to engage in mutual grooming with. These preferences are stable over time. They have emotional weight. A cow separated from her preferred companion shows measurable stress. A cow reunited with a familiar individual after separation shows measurable relief. These are real relationships, specific bonds between specific individuals, not generic associations. Where does the human fit in this social world? The answer varies by context and history. In some situations, the human remains permanently outside the cow's social map, a periodic presence that is tolerated but never incorporated. In others, particularly where cows have had extensive positive contact with a specific human from an early age, something more interesting happens. The human comes to occupy a position on the edge of the cow's social world. Not a herd member in the full sense, but something that shares some qualities of what the cow associates with safety and familiarity. There is evidence that cattle can form genuine attachments to specific humans that parallel, at least in some physiological measures, their attachments to familiar herd members. The cow's arousal decreases in the trusted human's presence. She seeks proximity rather than distance when given a choice. She looks to the human for information about whether the environment is safe. This is attachment, not human attachment, with all its conscious layers and verbal complexity, but a real phenomenon with real physiological underpinnings that changes how the cow experiences her world. A cow with a trusted human in her environment is not the same animal as a cow without one. Her threshold for fear is higher. Her capacity to recover from stress is greater. She is, in a measurable sense, doing better. And when she looks at that trusted human walking across the field, what does she see? She sees safety. She sees consistency. She sees the pattern of experiences that have, over time, delivered more comfort than threat. She sees, if we reach for the most precise language available to us, something that functions like the face of a good thing. Not in the human sense of a face, not with the narrative weight we give to faces we love, but in the animal sense of a stimulus that has become associated through accumulated experience with the settling of alarm, with the presence of familiar signals that mean the world is, for now, okay. She does not see a farmer. She does not see a caretaker. She does not see a human being with a name and a set of intentions. She sees something more primal and in its own way more true than any of those categories. She sees a thing that has become, through the slow accumulation of shared experience, part of the fabric of her safety. And that is not a small thing. The question of whether animals have emotions has been debated for centuries, but in the last few decades that debate has shifted substantially, not because scientists have become more sentimental, but because the evidence has accumulated to a point where ignoring it requires more effort than acknowledging it. Cows show behavioral and physiological correlates of what we would, in humans, call frustration, fear, excitement, contentment, and possibly anticipatory pleasure. When cows are trained to expect a reward and the reward is withheld, they intensify their attempts, they vocalize more, their heart rates increase. This is, in function if not in subjective quality, exactly what frustration looks like across species. Fear needs even less argument. The machinery of fear in cattle is well documented, broadly similar to fear responses across other mammals, and produces outputs that look and function unmistakably like fear. On the positive end, young cattle given space and social companions and freedom from threat engage in play behavior. Running, jumping, head tossing, the purposeless expenditure of energy that, across species, is the clearest possible signal that an animal is not just surviving but experiencing something closer to thriving. Play represents a nervous system with enough surplus, enough freedom from threat, enough comfort, to do something just for its own sake. Whatever word we choose for that, it is real, and cows exhibit it. What reduces it? Stress, isolation, chronic discomfort, environments with no stimulation or choice, interactions that are consistently aversive. All of the conditions that, in any species, we recognize as incompatible with a good life. And here, we have to step back from the science and sit with what all of it means. If cows have memory, and they do. If they form attachments, and they do. If they experience something that functions like fear, frustration, joy, and comfort, and the evidence strongly suggests they do. If they can tell us apart as individuals, and they can. If they carry forward the emotional quality of their experiences across months and years, and they do. Then the question of how we exist in relationship to them is no longer purely practical. It becomes something quieter and more important. It becomes the question of what it means to share the world with a creature you have never truly looked at. For 10,000 years, humans and cattle have lived in extraordinary proximity. We have shaped them through breeding and management. We have built our diets, our economies, our landscapes around them. And in all of that time, the dominant story has been one of their absence. Empty inside, not worth worrying about in detail. A resource with a heartbeat. The science has been quietly and methodically proving that story wrong. Study by study, measurement by measurement, it has been building a picture of an animal that is not empty inside. An animal that has experiences, carries them, is shaped by them in lasting ways, and exists in relationship to us whether or not we have ever consciously chosen to enter into that relationship. We began this story with a question. What does a cow see when she looks at you? We have traveled through her visual system with its panoramic, color-shifted, wide-angled view. Through her olfactory system reading your chemistry before you even arrive. Through her auditory system tracking the rhythm of your footsteps and the tone of your voice. Through her social memory, holding years of accumulated experience with you and everyone like you. Through her emotional system producing responses based on what that memory contains. Through her face-reading capacity extracting emotional signals from your expression. Through her nervous system's constant background question. The question every prey animal never fully stops asking. Is this safe? And the answer we can offer, after all of that, is also the simplest one. She sees what you have shown her you are. Not the you that exists in human social categories. Not the you with a name and a job and an inner life you navigate with language. But the you that has been present in her vicinity over time. The you that has moved toward her in certain ways, touched her with certain qualities, spoken in certain tones, and created certain experiences in her body. That is what she sees. That is what she remembers. That is what determines, more than anything else, what happens in the next moment between you. And somehow that is more real, more specific, more genuinely seen than almost any human way of knowing another being. Because it is not mediated by the stories we tell about each other, the roles we assign, the categories we impose. It is the direct report of a nervous system that has been paying close and honest attention to the truth of what you are, as expressed through your actions and your presence. The cow at the fence is watching you right now, in the way that only she can. Her ears forward, her dark eyes carrying more information per second than most people will ever appreciate. Her nose already reading you from across the field. Her memory already scanning for the pattern that matches what is arriving. And what that pattern tells her, what it has been slowly, patiently, reliably telling her every time you have shown up, is what you actually are to her, not a human, not a category, not a label, a pattern of experience, a history of moments, a thing that is either part of what makes her world safer, or part of what makes it harder. The cow does not hold this truth against you. She simply holds it, carries it forward, brings it to the next encounter, and the one after that. Her nervous system, patient and without judgment, remains open to new information, ready to update the pattern if what arrives begins to tell a different story. That, perhaps more than anything else in this story, is what we might learn from her. The capacity to remain present, to keep paying attention, to let what is actually happening update what we thought we already knew, and to build, slowly and honestly, something worth trusting. She is still watching. What she sees is up to you.